and the masculine is the Jed, or the spinal cord of Osiris, and the feminine is what they call the Teat, which is 2 arms down of an Ankh. And you see 2 of one, 2 of another, 2 of one, 2 of another, double feminine, double masculine. And then you've got, there's a third aspect of this, the vulture, which is the feminine, and the snake, which is the masculine. And so you see on King Tut's mask the vulture and the snake, the vulture and the snake together. You see the winged disc, which is the wings of the vulture, and then the snakes on the side, over and over and over. So the idea, and especially at the lintel of going into a temple. So the lower self surrenders to the higher self, the masculine and the feminine come together. So I did my master's research on the hemispheres of the brain, and it's about the corpus callosum, which is the mediator between the two. If you get stuck in either side, you've got nothing. And so creative thinking involves getting a hunch in the left brain, kind of going into some kind of trance. Like a lot of scientists, they give up, they're on their way to sleep, and they get the insight. So you're kind of you get into an altered state, and you get the illumination, the incubation, illumination, and then you've got to cross back into the left side of the brain for verification.
Right.
And so if you don't have the interaction, you really don't have anything. And so there is a crown which has mysteriously disappeared out of the Egyptian museum, but we won't talk about how and why that's going on. But it had like a snake-like serpentine going across the midbrain, and it's plain as day. And when you look at the scarab, it's like a skull, 2 sides of the brain, frontal lobes, and all of it's connected. And so it's not about anything being out of balance. It's about everything working together. And it makes sense. It makes perfect sense.
Well, now, what about the reptilian brain? How does that affect us, and where did that come from? And there's so much talk about reptilians, on many different levels that it's hard to escape it.
Yeah, the ones who are rubbery all the way through is what I call them. The reptilian, the draconians, they tend to be heartless, right? Cruel, bloodthirsty, and rubbery, and not refined.
Yeah.
And so the reptilian brain has our most basic instincts, sexuality, survival, that sort of thing.
Right.
And so we still are those beings. But we have the same DNA as the ancient Egyptians did, and so we can either, feed what's lower, and so we still have that part of ourselves, and it can be useful. But we've got to develop everything and develop the higher centers. So we can't just get stuck in the lower chakras. We can't just get stuck in our reptilian brain.
Right.
We've got to be exercising all the capacity. And Hakim, who's an indigenous wisdom keeper who's passed now, who's in the Pyramid Code, is talking about full spectrum senses that were dumbed down to 5, but that the ancients almost had handles between them. So synesthesia is hearing a picture, that sort of thing. And babies can have it. I've done a lot of research on this, and it's just a higher functioning of the senses. And then, of course, we were even told that we couldn't write with our left hand if we were right brain dominant. And, they'd slap a silly entire hand behind our back so that we had, everything has fed, including reading, writing, arithmetic, and the way the school system is, and test-driven and hierarchical, so the teacher's at the front and all of that, is not about empowerment, constructivism. Pretty much everything you see on TV is deconstructing.
Yes.
Killing, taking away, not building and being creative and empowering. So people are disempowered.
Yeah.
And they feel helpless. And they're miserable because of that. And it's happening worldwide where people just can't take any more stress.
Yeah.
Or any more inflation.
Yeah.
They just can't cope anymore.
Yeah.
And that was pretty scary in Egypt. The pollution is abominable. I'm planning another trip in November of 2011, and we'll make it and we'll go. But, I've been going over there since 1977, and I have never, ever experienced the pollution the way it was. It was like flying through mustard, and that's not very attractive. And yet, these sacred sites, are there. There are purer places along the Nile. And, the real monuments are still speaking to us. And so I think it's important, if anybody feels triggered, to come to Egypt to get on with it and do it quickly.
Right.
Because things are closing down. It's becoming more difficult,
and things
to get
are disappearing.
around.
as well. Some people theorize that the powers that be, or the powers that were, the government, whatever, the elite, know that there's going to be some kind of shake-up, disaster, whatever you want to call it, some possible movement of the Earth. And the movie 2012 depicted this as duplicating the masters, and then they were running them into vaults underground, so that the rich could escape in these enormous ships. And that's not unlike what I suspect is happening today.
Right, and I think I might coin that, the powers that were. That's much more empowering, actually. I like it.
Cliff High invented that one.
Pardon me?
Cliff High invented that one.
Oh,
I can't take credit for it.
All right, well, thanks, Cliff. I was going to make another comment there.
About the...
so at 2012, though, when you see the predictions for disaster with all these 2012 Armageddon things, they're taking footage of a tsunami that happened, an earthquake that happened, hurricanes, right?
Yeah.
The prediction is old footage. We don't know that everything's going to shake apart, and there's plenty of people that are thinking, and we went through Y2K, fear,
right.
and then nothing happened. But, people also say, oh, so what, we're in the 7th day of the Mayan calendar. I don't feel anything. And the collective and the energy takes the thinking through it differently and experiencing it for ourselves takes a while.
Yeah.
And I know the energy shifted. I just find there's many changes. And to me, the sacred, the Holy Grail of the sacred feminine is a phenomena. I mean, the Norway spiral was a phenomena. There's things that are shifting. And I think we have to be open to the fact that maybe Mother Earth has shrugged her shoulders, and maybe she'll continue to shrug. And we're not really sure about the dates, but I think that we've seen a lot falling apart, and to think it's going to get worse and worse and worse, I mean, I don't know how much worse it can get.
I know. Well, yeah, I agree with you on that one. But I do look forward to a return of the divine feminine and the balance that it can create for all of us, and a raising of consciousness. This does seem to be the densest period. Even since I was born in 1950, it seemed that things were more open and more compassionate and loving, and people cared about each other, and I know that hasn't gone away.
No, real people are beautiful. I've been to 52 countries, and people they all want the same thing, love and respect, and it's not the people of the world that are causing these problems.
No.
And if you've got children, especially women, you're not going to go out and shoot somebody else's kid.
No.
And so it's when you're disconnected and full of propaganda and, fear-based that you end up behaving in a different way. And
that's right.
Yes. So, we really have to just allow the beauty to come out. But I mean, it's pretty hard. It's pretty hard when people, when everything's falling apart around you.
Yes, and you've got so many different grids interfering with, causing interference patterns with your ability to perceive. There's the HARP technology, and as I said, there are chemtrails, there's the food is being manipulated, the mercury in the water, and I mean, it goes on and on and on and on. And so, the television, I just watched another program about how there are certain ways that we're hypnotized, and the information is given to us pretty much without our knowledge. And so it's a tough rap, but I think that if we couldn't make it, we wouldn't have come here in the first place.
Well, and fluoride in our water makes us docile so that we don't protest and all of that.
Right.
And we're having this conversation from a knowledge base of the chemtrail and point in the sky, and there it is.
Yeah.
Right? And of true information. Yeah. However, when I look out my eyes, I see birds, I see flowers, I breathe fresh air.
Right.
And I find myself kind of going, whoa. There's no problem in this moment.
Right.
Right here, outside, in my day.
That's right.
And so, then I toy with the idea of not listening, not doing the interviews and all of that. And then, no, we need to be informed.
Right.
And so people like you and I can't leave it alone, However, I think we need to notice that there is a lot of beauty and love and kindness.
Yes.
There's a tremendous amount of kindness.
Yes.
And sometimes somebody in the, on a path in the woods smiles and lights up your whole world.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And so that's real humanness and Mother Nature.
Yes.
And the rest of it is superimposed upon us, sending, as you say, interference patterns. However, yogis can eat glass and walk on fire.
Yeah, right.
There's a possibility. I used to have this card in my wallet, and I kept it there till it absolutely fell apart, and it was, be realistic, plan for a miracle.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. And how many times have you been watching, say, a television show that without commercials, let's say, and just something comes through that just feels like divine providence. And it just seems like a direct message from some higher realm. That happens all the time.
You bet it does. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that synchronicity is the rule and not the exception. And as we true up our ability to perceive things accurately and remove the interference patterns, we move into a field of synchronicity where we begin to notice how things interconnect and are intertwined and are very personal to us.
Absolutely. And then there's following your intuition. So Monday morning I got up and I came straight from, getting ready and sat down at the computer and turned on Starry Night, and I'm kind of like having a conversation like, what are we doing here? And then, what about this? And what about Cygnus? And, supergalactic grid. And I just started clicking things along, and then I started experimenting with it. And I thought, did I just discover something here?
Wow.
So that night I went out to a meditation with Peter Tung from Voice America, who interviewed me, and he happens to live in Victoria. And, he is very well informed, and he's leading us through this meditation. And all of a sudden, I felt like I was personified in the body of Nui, and these 5 different spaces of the phases of the sun or whatever in her body became the chakras, and then they become, and then I thought, oh my God, I'm experiencing this supergalactic zodiac.
Wow.
And then I came back and I spent the day, verifying, which is exactly the process I was talking about, where you have a hunch, and then you incubate, and then you get the illumination, and then you go back to verify. And so I'm not ready to publish it just yet because I want to make sure I've got it every which way. But it's like, I've been staring at this stuff for 35 years.
Yeah.
And the question's been, why does Isis have a bird on her head? And so in the meditation, I'm like, that's why.
Yeah.
And so if we are open and we keep doing our homework and keep breathing fresh air and stay close to nature, then perhaps we will just all end up with insights and we are. I think that many people are, as long as we don't entrench ourselves and buy into the fear. But, if you lose your house and you lose your job and who knows what else you can lose, you lose your health, and then, you're broke because of your, it's kind of hard to stay optimistic. However, people do.
Absolutely. And, these trials maybe they're trials by fire and part of the purification process of learning what's of value and what's not of value. And the material realm is only of value if you're using it and it does not have control of you. And in the world that I see, for the most part, it's kind of running the world. It's running us. But a lot of people are turning away from that and turning within to learn how to get in touch with the spiritual side.
Yep. And more people are doing yoga. More and more people are meditating.
Yeah.
More and more people are doing exercise, listening to shows.
Yeah.
And so there's momentum.
Now, a question for you on the supergalactic grid. I just had a thought. If we're going through all these different cycles, let's just assume that the Mayan cycles are all legitimate and they're accurate. Several cycles are completing at the same time. 13,000 year, 26,000 year, it goes on to millions, and then there's a 16.5 billion year, I think. Mm-hmm. And as I understand it, they're all turning over like an odometer at 99.999 to 0 in 2012. Mm-hmm. Is it possible that we could move into a 13th sign of the zodiac, or an entirely new zodiac that is on the other side of the of the galaxy, because we're going to be tipping into the other side of the galactic plane, for one thing. We've never been there before, as far as I know. It could be a whole new physics. It could be a whole new dimension. It could be a parallel, it could open parallel universes. I mean, aren't all kinds of things possible as a result of this?
What an awesome question. Okay, so when you say we're tipping into a different plane, we've been in the photon band, and
right.
We tipped into it, and then the whole solar system came in, and then we started to see different colored spectrums, purple added into rainbows, green spectrum in the sky. We have tipped. But the other thing, too, is that, like, if you think of all these different cycles, Dan Winter on his website has, a bunch of different cycles, and then when they all come to zero, as you said, 99990, it's almost like the chakras all open up. Like, we're one cycle, another. But when you go flat, it's almost like, imagine all the chakras aligned at the 0 point, then we have a ladder into the next reality. So after the 12th dimension, it's not the 13th dimension. It's another universe.
Yes.
It's the beginning of another game.
Yes.
Now, the dark rift is the world tree, and the dark rift. You see symbols over and over and over again in Egypt and through the Mayan stuff of this seedling, and they're pouring water on the seedling. So and the thing is people say, well, why is the Mayan calendar ending? Like, don't they have didn't they have they run out of stone on the edge of it? And it's because we are starting over.
We'll be writing our own.
If it is conscious co-creation, then we have to be in the driver's seat and lead it somewhere.
Right.
The 0 point. Okay, the other thing that people say, it's a reset button.
Right.
And so everything that you already had is gone. You push a button, you start over. Reboot the computer. Mm-hmm. The power goes out for a second, and all the numbers are flashing on your coffee maker and everything, and it's zero.
And the viruses are broken down and killed.
Yeah. And so the thing is, though, is if you get there and go, oh, now what, then you're not creating it.
Right.
And so I think, thought is creative. And they talk about, collective visualization and the 100th monkey and worldwide meditations and this sort of thing. Now, that can, I suppose, be dangerous if depending on what kinds of thoughts are really going in. But, negative thinking, what we talk about, we think about, and what we think about, we bring about.
Absolutely.
And when people say, oh, I'm never going to be able to do that, oh, I'm so stupid, I had such a blonde day or whatever, we're basically programming ourselves.
Right.
So to say, positive things to ourselves, positive things to one another, we can retrain and entrain ourselves to see the magic and the beauty, and the earth can heal itself.
Yeah.
And we're still getting pounded by interference patterns.
Yes, but hopefully
because we're on the pardon?
And hopefully not for long.
Yeah, but it's because we're on the verge here.
Yeah.
Of figuring it all out.
Sign. I would take it as a good sign. It's not a pleasant sign, but I would take it as a good sign. Yeah. So.
Well, I mean, it's very, very interesting times. And I think we've got to be incredibly careful here.
Yes.
Because, doom and gloom. Well, is it? Or is it magical?
Right. I say magical.
I say magical, too. I think
when I look at your pictures, I see magic. So
well, and when something manifests, and I've had many experiences with manifestation, like literally, the brain goes crazy. Maybe the ego part or whatever. Oh, well, it must be lens flare or whoa. Well, why is it moving and the pyramids are in the same place?
Yes.
What is it? Like, what is it reflecting? It's the size of the pyramid. I mean, come on, why so big? And it is a shape, and everybody who looks at it, the thing is that I've only shown the picture to, like, maybe 6 people. And this is, like, hot off the press here. And because I wasn't exactly sure how to handle what it is because it's a phenomenon. But I heard your reaction when you opened those pictures. And people kind of go, oh, What is it?
Yeah.
Like, they don't start arguing and saying, oh, yeah, lens